This is Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth. We're here in Spokane, Washington for the Red Pill Expo, and I am joined right now by our good friends at World Alternative Media, John Sneisen. Now, John, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this coming 5G network, because you are coming from a telecommunications background. You are very knowledgeable in this area. So for anybody who's maybe just for the first time hearing about what this whole 5G thing is all about, what would you say is, just break it down in a nutshell. What is 5G and why should people be concerned about this?
Well, sure. Let's just, by talking about 5G, let's just talk about what we have today, like 4G, for example. So what we have today is we have a bunch of antennas that are standing, along highways or they're on buildings or whatever they are. And that is kind of today's system. They have like a central node where you have ports in it for every single person. So they have they're like a base station, it's called, and it just when you pick up your phone and talk or use your text or anything on it, it communicates with a port in that base station, and then it sends that information to wherever you are, routing your information. So that's how it works today, the 4G. But the 5G system, what they plan to do is they plan to just use those antennas as a backbone, so just talking to each other without talking to the actual phones. But what they are going to do is they're going to place antennas everywhere. The reason why they have to do that is because they're going up in frequency. So with a frequency, you need, when you go up in frequency, it's going to go less and less distance depending on the wattage. So you're going to have more wattage, which is the radiation, the energy that takes to send that signal out. So when that radiation comes out, they're going to have to amp up the power, and that is what the danger is. When I was back in Norway, I was climbing up in cell phone towers, and you have to shut down the tower or else you're going to get completely fried. Your body will be very destroyed. And I have a friend of mine, he can't go through those naked body scanners, those radiation chambers at the airports.
Which I don't recommend anyone do.
No, exactly. But he actually had to go through one once, and he just started puking because his inner workings of his body has gotten destroyed by the severe radiation you get by just going in front of one of those towers. And today's 4G towers, they usually send out what's at 60 watts, which is, it doesn't sound like much if you know what wattage is. But it has, the frequency is so much higher, so the radiation of that frequency is more dangerous to you.
So let me get this straight. It sounds like what you're saying is with the implementation of these new antennas, the current antenna system, are they going to be designing like a mesh, like a giant invisible spider web of radiation that's going to be raining down on people? How is this going to work?
Well, yeah, what it's going to do is you're going to have an antenna right at your door almost, because the frequencies that they're looking at running at is, between 6 gigahertz all the way up to 60. But the problem is today I'm installing just with 4G, I'm installing cell phone boosters in people's home. I don't recommend that you ever put that in your house, because now you have a mini cell phone antenna in your house, which is not good for your health. But with the new 5G, they're going to have to completely put these antennas so close and so tight that I don't know if I want to really be around a place that have 5G, because you're looking at of course, they're not going to have to send out at the 60 watt, which fries people, but they're going to send it out they're going to have to send it out at a decent wattage to actually be able to penetrate into the house. Because most houses today, the 4G signal, which is 2.1 gigahertz here in North America, has problems to penetrate already. So with the new system, and they're talking about different aspects and ways to try to make it better and easier for them to penetrate, but I see that as a danger, because now you're gonna have all these antennas everywhere, and they're gonna constantly, give you radiation. Because the radiation that are dangerous, they kind of minusculely talk about it in the 5G white papers, that, oh yeah, you're gonna have some, but it's gonna be 10 times less, they're saying and stating. But with 4G, you don't even want to have this phone up to your head, because you're gonna, if you ever been, talking like this, you've had and felt, the warmth, and that's the radiation that are, damaging your cells.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me get this straight, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, what they would like to see is it be inescapable, essentially a global Wi-Fi system where anywhere in the world you would be able to log on to the Wi-Fi, or they would be able to log on to you. Is that true? Is that what they're going for here? A global universal Wi-Fi system?
Well, if they are not planning on doing that, they're definitely doing it. It might not be the conspiracy, but they're definitely, like, that's where they're going with it. And it's just an automatic, I think, of governments and everybody wanting, well, of course, there's huge convenience having access everywhere you are, and we're so addicted to our phones today. So I believe that I'm pretty sure that, you know, the implementation of this is not going to be, you know, good for people's health because of the radiation. And in Norway, for example, you have housing built like far away from the high voltage lines, because that radiation is very damaging for you as well. Like, people have been proved to get cancer and bad cancers like leukemia and so on by, you know, being close to those antennas. So it's not good at all to implement this system, but it's super convenient. I would like to see more fiber optical cables, because it's just light and it doesn't radiate anything or damaging, you know, with the wattage and the electromagnetic frequencies that comes out of these towers. But it's not going to be as convenient anymore because you don't have Wi-Fi. You know, you're not so portable anymore, yeah. Right? So it's all about the convenience, and people will willingly, you know, adopt to this because it's super convenient. Yeah. I don't see how we're going to stop it, because people are, as I said, super addicted. So I think the implementation, and of course the International Telecom Union, the ITU at the UN, is working on, you know, putting out legislation and creating all this stuff for all over the world. But yeah, it's inevitable, I think, that they're going to try to implement. Actually, in Morden in Manitoba, in Canada, they're just implementing a 5G system.
Well, is there anything to do, in closing here, that people can do to protect themselves from this, or to mitigate it somehow, or to reduce the harmful effects that are inevitably going to be coming?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. You can, of course, like, shut off your phone and not where, like I have right now, like close to your private parts, like, just to make sure that you you know, shut off. But the problem is, if you shut it off, you're not accessible, so it's harder that way. But I would say you're probably better off in the long run, you know, doing that. You can of course get devices and little cages that you can put around your phone to protect yourself from the radiation from them. And of course, if you have Wi-Fi at home, you know, you can shut it down when you don't use it. You know, to mitigate the exposure to the risks of the frequency, to the electromagnetic frequency. And of course, you can build yourself a Faraday cage around your house, but that's a little bit extreme, maybe. But maybe that's what they have to do in the future. They're going to have to do it. But we'll see where it's all going to go. I think there's a lot of risks that are not getting talked about, especially the health risks, and it's kind of like it's come out and in, like in Norway, where I'm from too. You know, every now and then there's somebody talking about the cancer risks of cell phone usage, but then suddenly it just disappears. So it's I think, of course, the big telecom companies doesn't want to have anybody know that, you know, they could get cancer, because they would, first of all, they get massively sued, and then people might wake up to, you know, how dangerous the overuse of this is.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent words of advice. You know, minimize your usage, essentially. You know, this is something me and my girlfriend have recently implemented, a new rule in the house: no cell phones in the bedroom. We turn off the Wi-Fi before we go to sleep. And you know, it leads to some things that you never would have thought of. Like, I'm reading a heck of a lot more. You know, I'm not sitting there in bed scrolling through my stupid social media websites, and I'm reading instead. So lots of benefits can come from reducing your exposure to radio frequency exposure and just the cell phone in general. So John, once again, man, thanks so much for talking to us.
Pleasure.
Links will be located in the description below.
We all want truth.
We live in a connected world. Mobile technology allows us to stay in touch, run our businesses, and capture and share the moments that count. Wireless technology is so abundant, it's difficult to imagine not being connected. These connections bring news, joy, success, drama, and humor. There are billions of connections made every day on T-Mobile's network. From calls, texts, videos, and pictures to GIFs and emojis. That's a lot of cat videos. To meet demand, T-Mobile is constantly adjusting and expanding our national network. We keep your mobile world moving. It takes an endless balance of hardware, software, antennas, radios, and indoor and outdoor technologies. Wireless depends on wired ground-based infrastructure to connect customers. How does it work? Well, imagine watering a landscape. You spray water so it properly saturates the ground, flowers, trees, and shrubs. However, you wouldn't use the same pressure to water a large field as you would a delicate flower garden. And a brief mist does nothing for an evergreen or oak tree. Like watering a landscape, robust wireless networks must use the right technologies and antennas for the best wireless connectivity, depending on the carrier's needs and local conditions. Large macro antennas can distribute a signal far along roadways and adjoining neighborhoods. However, in populated areas, that same signal might have difficulty overlapping with the signal from the adjacent cell site. Radio signals that are too weak or too strong can result in bad coverage, dropped calls, or poor clarity. The same is true with a lawn sprinkler. Dry patches happen when a sprinkler misses part of the grass. T-Mobile's challenge? Our always mobile customers have skyrocketing demands. One way we're meeting this demand is with smaller, lower power, and more numerous antennas and radios, small cells.
We have to take in consideration the noise that's in the network. A good example of this is that when you go to a coffee shop and you're the first one in there, you clearly can hear anybody that's actually in that coffee shop. So as the coffee shop starts to fill up, the noise begins to rise. And the only way you can actually enjoy the conversation now with individuals is actually to get closer together and have that conversation so it's quick, it's clean, without interruption. In the network, it's the same principle. We actually have to get the devices closer to the customer so you get good throughput and quality of service.
As your network grows and you need more and more capacity, now you need to come up with other solutions that can strategically put the capacity where you need it. That's where the small cell comes in.
Even though their footprint may be smaller than a typical macro site, small cells do provide coverage in areas because they are closer to the people that are actually holding those smartphones.
Small cells are typically deployed in dense urban areas where we have a lot of foot traffic, outdoor shopping areas, indoor and outdoor venues.
The antennas are very small. They're probably the size of a toaster. You can actually put the antennas on an existing utility pole without replacing those existing utility pole or existing fixtures in the street. You can actually attach those antennas.
You may not notice them due to their slim form factor, but thanks to low-power small cells, you can enjoy uninterrupted wireless services where you live, work, and play. Even for retail shops, small cells can be extremely effective. Businesses of all sizes depend on mobile coverage.
Mobile technology is absolutely an advantage in our community for business development. We try very hard to attract new business and we try to retain existing business. And one of the main issues is connectivity. To the extent we can provide the best connectivity, we're going to keep new business and I'm going to keep cutting ribbons.
Our cities and communities rely on a wireless network for convenience, safety, and quality of life.
In every municipality, the residents want connectivity. They want calls that aren't dropped. They want to make sure that wherever they go, all their tools are going to work.
Small cells actually play a great role on those residential areas.
Low-power small cells bring reliable coverage to large campuses, venues, and sporting events. Wherever crowds congregate and people want to communicate.
Touchdown, Colorado State!
Small cells will also work well with 5G.
5G is going to allow us to do many great things.
Like Internet of Things, when you're starting to look to provide connectivity to cars, to refrigerators, to even the washer and dryer at home.
Uploads and downloads faster. It will be more like a real-time speed. They're going to be able to see stream videos faster.
Smart homes and smart cities and autonomous vehicles.
So 5G brings together a lot of what we use every single day.
For business owners, for families, friends, and everyday conveniences. Living in our connected world, you need a mobile device and the robust network technologies that make connectivity possible.
The future
future will be the result of decisions we must make today.
Everyone knows the government agencies are corrupt. It's common sense. It's clear that the system is broken and they're all crossing the line. Homeland Security, IRS, the USDA, the Treasury, the EPA, all of it BS. But rarely is it so blatant as it is with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, because, well, very, very few people pay attention at all to them. Hardly any resistance was put up against net neutrality rules, and that was a fairly big media story. Almost no one said anything about the mergers between the giant telecoms and the general complete takeover of communications. There really wasn't any resistance to the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which opened up a whole can of worms, a whole set of Pandora's boxes with the NSA and everyone else. But now they've opened up the floodgates to massive corporate control over our lives, a total surveillance system on the part of government agencies and their contractors, and the very near blanketing of the entire population.
Literally, of everyone in the world. Literally, of everyone in the world. Autonomous vehicles, smart city energy grids, transportation networks, and water systems. Immersive education and entertainment will come from the cloud. The driving force of the 21st century will be powerful processing, centralized in the cloud, and wirelessly connected to thin clients.
All of whom will be saturated with gigahertz signals literally everywhere they go on the planet, and no one has permission.
The United States will be the first country in the world to open up high-band spectrum for 5G networks and applications. And that's damn important, and will generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity.
Big surprise, since this FCC chairman, now a former chairman, who was appointed by Obama, big surprise since he used to be the president of 2 industry lobbyist organizations. Tom Wheeler was formerly president of the National Cable and Telecommunications Association and the CEO of the Cellular, Telecom, and Internet Association.
Chairman Wheeler put the entire fixed and mobile broadband industry under a stricter regulatory regime. He has done so many things that have angered his former employers at the NCTA and CTIA have sued the FCC during his tenure. He explains his actions by saying, "I used to be an advocate for corporate interests, and I hope I was a good one. But today, my client is the American people, and I want to be the best damn advocate for the American people that I can be."
So he represents the industry, he got appointed to the position, and he just fox and henhouse the whole thing. He just prostituted it all. So it's no wonder that he gives a no-holds-barred, full-force push to usher in 5G everywhere upon everyone, to swiftly and fully silence any and all dissenters, to ignore all the real questions, and to make sure that the safety data, to make sure that safety studies don't even happen.
Unlike some countries, we do not believe that we should spend the next couple of years studying what 5G should be or how it should operate. We won't wait for the standards. Turning innovators loose is far preferable to expecting committees and regulators to define the future.
And to make sure that questions about the biological effects of non-ionizing radiation are kept to an absolute minimum, off the table, out of the public eye, and nowhere near the FCC conversation.
How many people have to die from brain cancer before the federal government puts warning labels on cell phones?
It's time to tell the American public the truth. Wireless causes cancer and killing hundreds, and you don't care. You don't give a damn.
Because they're going to rubber stamp this thing right through, no doubt about it. They already have. And what else would you expect from a lobbyist? The trade-off gives total power to these companies, to various government agencies, and to anyone in between who's interested in spying, hackers. It opens it up for everyone. And as technology races forward in what is already a world dominated by cell phones and people looking lost into little screens, it will now be completely saturated with high-speed connections.
The next generation of wireless must be mobile fiber. 10 to 100 times faster than what we're used to today. We need to speed the deployment of 5G here on our shores. Yes, 5G will connect the Internet of Everything. If something can be connected, it will be connected in a 5G world. Of hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers, you can be sure of only one thing. The biggest Internet of Things application has yet
Every
to be
single
imagined.
device and appliance in manufacture is being fitted with a two-way communication device, and it sends data back. Spying and surveillance is completely built in. It's a total default, and it's the given. Location tracking, health data, audio and visual recordings, text, and everything else is going to be continually collected. And Tom Wheeler of the FCC freely admits it. He thinks it's great because it's going to make everything faster, and it's going to make more money.
We take our most significant step yet down the path to our 5G future.
Others have covered it as well, but this is an issue that is not well known enough. 5G is a huge upgrade to the system. It is a complete overhaul compared with 3G and 4G. It's not only dramatically faster speeds, which is what they're going to play up to sell it to consumers and tell everyone what a great convenience and advancement that it is, but it is also a literal complete infrastructure overhaul.
Now, to make this work, the 5G build-out is going to be very infrastructure intensive, requiring massive deployment of small cells. The big game changer is that 5G will use much higher frequency bands than previously thought viable for mobile broadband and other applications. Such millimeter wave signals have physical properties that are both a limitation and a strength. They tend to travel best in narrow and straight lines, and they do not go through physical objects as well. This means that very narrow signals in an urban environment tend to bounce around buildings and other obstacles, making it difficult to connect to a moving point. But brilliant engineers have developed new antennas that can aim and amplify signals, coupled with sophisticated processing that allows a moving device to pick up all of the signals that are bouncing around and create one coherent connection.
They're going to put up boxes on telephone poles, or at least that's what the articles have said, and they're going to be on ground level sites and everywhere else, and it will completely replace the now obsolete cell towers that you've seen around and you've got used to seeing. Those are obsolete. These are coming in very quickly. The cell phone and wireless companies are spending billions of dollars. They're racing to complete installation of the system by 2020. And that's now only 3 years away.
Verizon and AT&T tell us they'll begin deploying 5G trials in 2017. First commercial deployments they're talking about are expected in 2020.
They're fueling money into cities and private owners where the towers will be installed. They're paying them off, and they're moving so fast that there's going to be very few places that are free at all anymore. I don't want to add paranoia, I don't want to make people fearful, but basically, where can you run from this? Once this system is fully launched and up, it's going to be just like the Terminator Genesis system. It's going to be the rise of AI, and it's going to be like there's no looking back.
We must reject the notion that the 5G future will be the sole providence of urban areas. The 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country. We are the pioneers of a new spectrum frontier.
No one gave permission for this because most people don't fully understand what's happening or why it matters. They're going to click on little agreements on their cell phone for the different sites they visit, and they're going to have no idea how much is going to be taken from that. But it's clear that this is not a good bargain, and people need to be warned. They should try to oppose this in their local cities and where they can, and try to challenge these companies, because they don't want to face resistance, and they don't want a population that knows about the dangers and the risks of this technology. But the capabilities of this technology are absolutely unfathomable, I can't cover it all in this video. Go look it up for yourself. Now, I'm not going to get into Dr. Rasa Day of UCLA right now, do a more in-depth video later on, or a lot of the other brain doctors and neurological researchers, but Rasa Day was working with the CIA and exchanging technology and study data with the Russians back in the 60s and 70s and even further back, and he figured out scientifically, demonstratively, how non-ionizing radiation at various specific frequencies from microwaves or from other signals, how they could alter human and animal behavior. For instance, a simple 10 hertz wave could put someone into a stupor within a couple of minutes. Using neuroelectric devices that they developed by the 70s, they could put individuals or entire towns to sleep on command. They can aggravate people, they can alter their sexual preferences, they could delete their memories, they could turn on desire, they could turn on repulsion, and they could otherwise hijack someone's spontaneous and natural behavior. They could literally hijack your nervous system and your brain. And that was 30 or 40 years ago. Now things are very advanced, they're very precise, and they're very far along. There's discussions now at the Davos World Economic Forum that have broached the topic of mind reading and literal mind control. And these devices, the capability to do it is built into everything, every handheld unit, every laptop, mobile device that everyone's carrying around. And once things are fast enough with 5G, all bets are off. The constant ubiquitous connection with these next generation 5G towers. I mean, what else can you say? You either see it or you don't.
So this fully autonomous drone works on behalf of John and the team at Woodard Construction. So John, if you want to say a little bit more to the President about how you've seen that experience been?
We have to go out in the field and survey. 25 years ago, we didn't even know what a cell phone was. We look today and we can actually, just our life has kind of evolved around the technology. It's life-changing. This drone is life-changing. We're finding out daily, not in the quarry side of things, but in the construction side of things, and other uses. We've actually started 2 other businesses up off the same drone, just using it in a different way. So it's
and yet right now drones are becoming very powerful too. I see where they're lifting people. I don't know about the level of safety there, but when I see that, but also I guess they're going to be lifting very heavy material at some point.
Yeah, there's an initiative with other companies underway to effectively have delivery being done by a drone. This drone in particular is about just being able to collect aerial intelligence in a seamless way and being able to deliver that to the user in a way that they weren't able to accomplish before. So John's able to get that work done in literally minutes after the drone flies, versus usually it would take him days of just manual labor to be able to accomplish that same work.
Fantastic job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Randall?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about 5G technology in about 2 minutes, okay? Guys like Jeff Immelt, various Internet of Things, drones, autonomous cars are going to require a whole different level of speed and wireless networks. If you come over here, this is a residential neighborhood. If you want to get the kind of speeds required today, these lights are fiber. We have to take fiber to every one of these houses to get that kind of bandwidth. What 5G does, says forget about all that fiber out here. Get fiber to this small cell, which Marcelo is going to show you here. This small cell will broadcast this kind of bandwidth to all these homes, okay? You no longer need to run fiber in here. So you can have speeds that are multiples of what the fastest cable technology can deliver today into the home with wireless technology. If you move into the city, what's happening? If you want to get that bandwidth in there, the same thing. Fiber run to every one of these buildings. It takes a long time digging up roads, bridges, and sidewalks and so forth. 5G says no longer. In fact, all you need are small cells inside the city, and we can light up these buildings here as well, right? And then as you move to Wi-Fi, we have Wi-Fi deployed in these buildings all over the place, so customers moving in and out of the Wi-Fi arrangement. You can see the old big cell technology sitting on top of buildings, broadcasting throughout the city. But down the street level, the customer is being put on whatever network gives them the fastest speeds. This could be an autonomous car, it could be any number of things. And so as the car moves, it gets moved back and forth between the networks into another 5G deployment, and you're getting these kind of multiple gigabit speeds throughout cities without all the fiber having to be deployed into all these buildings. Really accelerates it, makes us get to the market much faster.
So 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you couldn't have even imagined
Wouldn't have
this.
thought about it. No, sir, we would not have. And this is 2018, we'll deploy this kind of configuration, and the companies in here are. And in 2020, it becomes mobile. And so this handset would be getting these.
So there has to be a tremendous construction saving, too, ultimately.
It's a huge construction saving. You don't have to deploy all this fiber. You see this little cell site here. You're going from deploying these big cell sites and towers to deploying these all over cities. That's what Marcelo is going to show you, what this technology looks like now.
So, Mr. President, if I can summarize 5G, is $275 billion of investment in the next 7 years, the creation of 3 million new jobs, and a contribution of $500 billion to the GDP of the United States. What is different between 4G and 5G? 4G, those were enormous towers that look quite ugly. We're going to move to deploy millions of this, hundreds of thousands and then millions of small cells all over the United States. The problem that we have is it takes us 1 year to get a city to give us a permit, but it takes us 1 hour to install them. And unless we can install them real fast, we're going to lose that leadership that we have today. Those huge towers, all it is now, is just a small cell. You put this on the utility poles, you put it in the cable strands, and that's all we need in order to live. So when people ask about 5G,
But they're mostly local permits you need?
basically we run into trouble with cities, municipalities, counties. Each one has its own idea of how much they should charge, how long should it take.
How much is a federal permit? How long does that take?
Well, this mainly will go down to the cities. We're working quite well with the
FCC to a problem with certain cities.
There's some cities that takes 30 days, there's some cities that takes 2 years, so it's impossible to do. So this is why we need to fix this. And that's what 5G, when everybody talks about 5G.
Well, we can do a recommendation to the cities all over the country to get it going, and Gary, maybe they can move it faster. Because this is truly a great process, but why don't we do a very strong letter of recommendation so they can get it done much faster? We're doing that all over the country.
You know what, shot clocks, the FCC at one time put in place to deploy these kind of cell sites, shot clocks. You have 180 days to get a permit done or accepting a permit. Something similar is going to need to be done.
Well, we're doing that with highways. It would take sometimes 15 to 20 years to get permits to build a small road or a highway. And we're going to bring it down, try to bring it down to 1 year, maximum 1 year. And you have the same thing. This is much easier.
So
this is really much easier, believe me.
The US is a leader in 4G. We launched 3G. And every country, China, Europe, is basically streamlining the process to get there faster.
So this will be going into many other countries? By other companies, by you? By
no, we only operate in the US, and our goal is to basically, we want the US to lead 5G because of the speed, because of the job creation.
You will if you can get your permits.
Absolutely.
China has much less trouble getting permits.
Exactly.